Welcome back to First Year Confirmation. We will be studying Lesson 9 today, talking about the ninth and 10 commandments on coveting. This week, we will focus on Joshua. Let's begin. Get your Bible out for our lesson today. Now read Joshua chapters 3 and 4 and chapters 6 and 7 and answer the questions. Then read pages 32 through 37 in the Green Book and then answer those questions that are in the book. Try to do the fill in the blank section under Homeward Bound on page 36. It will not be on the question sheet, but we will go over it later on. Plus, it's a little bit fun. We will discuss the Bible readings in the Green Book in the video at the end. When we left off, the children of Israel had just crossed the Red Sea. A lot happened between this time and today's lesson. As the children of Israel headed towards the Promised Land, they often complained about food and water. They often forgot how God had met their needs in the past. Again, God supplied them with what they needed. When they got to Mount Sinai, God gave Moses and also the Israelites the 10 Commandments. God also gave Moses some rules for the people. Among those were instructions on how to build a sanctuary for God to dwell in, called a tabernacle. They were to build the Ark of the Covenant. Moses was on the mountain a long time, and the people of Israel soon started worshiping a false god, a golden calf. God told Moses about it, and when he came down, he broke the 10 Commandments. After some time, he went up and got a new set of 10 Commandments. Eventually, the children of Israel reached the Promised Land. They sent 10 spies into the land. 8 reported how big some of the people were living in the Promised Land. They brought fear to the Israelite people, and they complained, saying again, "Why have we been brought here while we could still be in Egypt?" The other 2, Joshua and Caleb, reported that the land was good, a land of milk and honey. The people once again did not trust God, and God punished their unbelief. For 40 years, the people would wander in the wilderness, and those of this generation would die and not enter the Promised Land. Moses had not followed God's instructions, and because of that, Moses was not allowed into the Promised Land. God did allow Moses to climb a mountain where he could see the Promised Land. There Moses died, and God buried him there. Earlier, Joshua had been chosen by God to lead the people of Israel into the Promised Land. That brings us to today's reading in Joshua. The people of Israel reached the Jordan River, and God decided to show this generation his great power and that he was with Joshua. God halted the Jordan River, and the people of Israel crossed on dry land. They made a memorial so that when those in the future ask about it, they can tell them that God dried up the river and the people crossed over. Now the people came to Jericho and camped outside the city. God gave the people of Israel instructions, and if they followed them, the walls of Jericho would come down. They were to destroy everything except the few precious metals that were to go to the Lord's treasury. They were to keep nothing for themselves. They did as the Lord said, and the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. Only a woman and her family who had helped some Israelite spies would be saved. One of them did not do as the Lord said and kept some items for himself. His sin ended up costing some soldiers their lives. To find them, God had the people of Israel march by, first by tribe until the Lord identifies the tribe the sinner came from. Then they came by clan, then by family, and finally by person. Finally, the guilty party was shown. He and his family paid the penalty for his sin by death. While the people of Israel were in the wilderness, they often disobeyed God and grumbled and complained to him. This was done despite all of God's great deeds. They were God's chosen people, but mostly wasted that opportunity. The people who lived in the Promised Land worshiped false gods and idols. They would bring their false gods to the people of Israel unless they were wiped out. Later on, some nations were not destroyed, and it led to corruption of the people of Israel over and over. It seems cruel to destroy these peoples, but they did not worship God, and they belong to God to do with them as he sees best. Fortunately, we are under the new covenant with God through Jesus and are saved and not destroyed.